everybody. I'm Lucas Stolz from the Herholdt Group. I'm the technical manager here today with John from Plentify. We're discussing the Plentify solution, which is SolarBot and the Hotbot. We can kick off with some questions, and we'll go over all the features and whatever this is all about with John here. Hi, John. How are you doing today?
Good, Lucas. How are you?
It's very good. In from the flight there early in the morning.
Yeah, it's Bloemfontein's a nice place to fly to. It's nice and central. So our team came from all over the country and got you in record time.
Yeah. So we're all very excited. I mean, all the salespeople here at Herholdt when we talk about your product. So let's dive into it. Why don't you give us an introduction to Plentify? It's like what you do, who you are, etc. How it started.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the best place to start is probably with our mission, given that we are a mission-driven organization. We exist to enable utilities to deliver affordable, reliable, and clean services. And we think about utility pretty broadly. It could be Eskom or your municipality, but it could also be your solar installer managing this rooftop system for you. The way that we try to achieve this outcome of affordable, reliable, clean utilities is by solving the mismatch between electricity supply and electricity demand. People familiar with renewables will know that the sun doesn't necessarily shine when you want to use power, and the wind doesn't necessarily blow at those times either. And this difference is actually most acute in homes, where people use most of their energy in the mornings and the evenings before and after work, but obviously solar produces mainly in the middle of the day. You can solve this mismatch in timing with batteries, but as we all know, batteries are expensive. And so that's where Plentify comes in. We build a load management platform for home appliances where we can shift demand to align with clean energy for 75% cheaper than batteries, while still ensuring that the resident gets exactly the service that they want from their appliance. For example, hot water when they open their tap.
Okay, great. Why don't we go over the Plentify app and the dashboard? So what are the benefits of the Plentify app and what are the benefits of the dashboard?
Yeah, so these are the two main interfaces to our system. The Plentify app is the portal for our users to engage with their home energy systems, and the Plentify dashboard is the portal for installers to manage their fleets of devices. So what you as an end user get from the Plentify app is effectively monitoring, you get control, and you get accessibility. And what that means is that you can see exactly what's going on with your system in real time. And by real time, I mean not real time, 2-second delay. So pretty close to real time. Yeah. much better than the 5 to 10 minutes that you might be accustomed to. So you get to monitor what's happening in real time in an intuitive way. You get to control the system. And the way that we do control, we try to do it as intuitively as possible. So instead of saying, I want my battery to be charged to X%, you just say, I want to last through load shedding, or I want to last through unplanned outages. Okay. That's what the resident actually cares about. And then finally, in terms of accessibility, we've put a lot of effort into making this app as intuitive as possible, as user-friendly as possible, so that ultimately our users can benefit from it and learn from it and become masters of their home energy systems.
It's an interesting point because like you and me spoke before, some of the we need to not dumb down the system, but make it more accessible for users to manage, the electricity and the consumption in the house. And I know you guys have put a lot of effort in trying to make that experience as simple and as powerful for the customers as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've been alongside us with this journey, Lucas. You've seen how many times we've iterated on that UI, how much user testing we've done, and it's been incredibly important to really understand what is the simplest way to communicate information to users and to empower them to make the right decisions to ultimately lead to more solar and less grid.
Yeah. All right, so let's dive into that then. The SolarBot, give us an overview, how that works, the compatible inverters, et cetera, et cetera. Let's just have a discussion around that.
Sure thing. You're happy to dive into the hardware. Then perhaps we can circle back to the dashboard as well, which I think is a really interesting thing for the installers. So you as a homeowner, you get access to this Plentify app, but that app is enabled by a suite of hardware products and APIs. And there's two products in particular that we've released to market that we're going to be partnering with Herholdt on. Those are SolarBot and Hotbot. So what SolarBot is a small control device that plugs into your existing solar inverter, and it better manages the state of charge of your battery, and it talks wirelessly to the appliances in your home to take advantage of extra solar when it's available. The result of SolarBot is more solar and less grid. Yeah, let me pause there, see if there's any questions on SolarBot now.
No, so I think it's interesting. Like, I think let's get into the nitty gritties of it a little bit later after we've gone into the Hotbot as well, and then it would be interesting for us to see what you think of third-party integration and what you might have in the pipeline for extra devices coming in and whatever the case may be.
Yeah, no, so that's a great question. So on Hotbot, so what Hotbot is it's the sibling of SolarBot, and it attaches or retrofits to any existing water heater with an electrical element. And what it does is it controls when your geyser heats in order to deliver you the most cost-effective hot water possible, while taking advantage of things like solar and avoiding things like load shedding. So you as a user, what you do is, again, very intuitively, with a traditional timer, if you've got a timer on your geyser, you'll be aware that, say, for example, you want hot water at 7 a.m. You've now got to think to yourself, okay, how long does my geyser take to heat up? And therefore, how long in advance do I need to turn this thing on? And you'll set your timer for 4 to 6 a.m. or something like that to ensure you have hot water at 7. Or worse than that, and many of our existing users used to have this experience where they would literally set an alarm for 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. in the morning, get up just to turn on their geyser, the distribution board, and then go back to sleep. With Hotbot, that's completely different. You say when you want hot water. I want hot water at 7 o'clock in the morning. I want hot water at 8 o'clock at night. And the system figures out the most efficient way to deliver you that hot water, taking into account your behavior patterns, taking into account the energy characteristics of your geyser, taking into account the forecast solar production, load shedding events, and kind of crafts a customized, personalized schedule for you without you having to think about it.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I think let's pause just there and let's talk about, because you quickly went over all those things that it takes into account, but it's important for, I think, not only the installers but also the end users to understand that. So this is what sets this product so far apart from the others, is it takes so many other variables into account, so where a timer would not allow you to do that, right? So you will, for instance, the system would figure out, depending on what the loads are usually in your house that day and what the weather is, to start charging your geyser at, let's say, 3:30, but the next day it would be 2:30 or whatever the case may be, because those things dynamically change, which then gives you your makes your consumption of your energy optimal, essentially.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's not an easy problem to solve either. If you think about what's required to make the perfect control decision, you need to know, like you say, you need to know the weather forecast, the solar forecast, the load shedding forecasts. But beyond that, there's also a whole bunch of thermodynamic modeling that you need to do, because the geyser doesn't store energy in one constant temperature. There are thermoclines inside that geyser. And so the temperature that you're measuring may not actually be reflective of the amount of energy that's in your tank. And so there's a whole bunch of additional modeling to create essentially a digital twin of every single appliance that we connect to, and then simulate what would happen if we ran different control strategies on those digital twins, and use that to select the best control strategy possible.
Amazing. Okay, amazing. Yeah. So let's talk about how all of that then ties into where all this control strategies operate. So where does it get done? Is it in the cloud? How does the SolarBot talk to the Hotbot? Is that via internal RF, or is it via the Wi-Fi in the house? How does all of this fit into each other?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, Hotbot and SolarBot are siblings, and they're designed very much to work together. So they let me talk about it from the perspective of SolarBot, because SolarBot is the home energy management system, and so it's where all the control decisions originate. So what SolarBot is doing is it's monitoring in real time what is happening with your system. It's monitoring the state of charge of your battery. It's monitoring your PV output, whether there's grid supply or not, what your loads are between essential, non-essential, etc. And it's also taking into account forecasts. So it's looking at forecast solar production, forecast load shedding, and a whole bunch of other variables as well. It's then using all that information to make real-time control decisions. So, and it's creating value in two ways. It's managing the state of charge of your battery and controlling other appliances wirelessly. So let me explain each of those in turn, and then describe how Hotbot fits into the picture. So on managing the state of charge of your battery, anyone who's familiar with solar systems will know that you can go to like PVSys or one of those simulation tools. You can plug in your location, the size of your system, and it'll give you an amazing estimate of how much solar you're going to produce every year. And I think if you go talk to installers of how many systems actually produce that energy potential of the solar, it's a tiny, tiny fraction. And the reason is, it's all great that you have the solar potential, but if there's no demand in your home to use that solar, it's not going to be generated. It's going to be curtailed. And so this comes into play when you're thinking about how to manage your battery. If you start your battery at the start of the day with, say, 80% charged, it means that you only have 20% headroom in your battery available to absorb any solar that's generated. And once that 20% is done, solar can no longer go to your battery. It can only go to the loads in your home. And given that most people aren't at home during the day, or their loads are very low during the day, it's generally not enough to use all the solar. And so you have a situation where there's a system which is capable of producing a lot more, but is actually only producing 50 to 70% of its potential. And we're seeing this in the data that we're finding. So what SolarBot does is it says, look, why does your battery need to be 80% at the start of the day? Load shedding is only at 5 o'clock tonight. We know how much solar is going to be generated between now and then. Let's start the battery much lower, provide headroom to absorb more solar, and so solar cuts off later in the day. And then when solar cuts off, because your battery is fully satisfied, now it's time to start using all that extra solar elsewhere so it doesn't go to waste. And so SolarBot talks wirelessly to Hotbot and says, hey, there's extra solar, turn on. And Hotbot turns on and will heat, according to your preferences, it'll heat only to the temperature that you want it, knowing exactly how much your geyser is going to cool by the time that you actually want it as well. Yeah. That wireless connection happens over LoRa, which is a 868 megahertz protocol, which is really effective as well because you got like 20 kilometers range in this stuff. It's very good at traveling through walls. So in a household environment, it's a very reliable way to communicate between these devices. And we can do it fast enough to prevent your inverter from tripping.
Which is great. Yeah. That's very, very important part. I actually want to just make a point there. So you spoke about the battery being charged, to 80% by 11 o'clock in the day. How many installs do you think has this? Because I've got a number in my head, and it's a load shedding solution. It's not an energy optimized solution at all. Because I think if we look at many plants here at Herholdt's like on a daily basis, and I would assume it's almost 80% of the 80 to 90 really of installs that do this, which means that solar and users can actually go and look at their app for this. Go and look at your app when your battery is charged and your solar production goes down. It's like the majority of the installs are this, and that's what this solution solves essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I guess therein lies the problem. Like, go and look at your solar app, and you'll notice one line goes down and the other line goes up. And you need a PhD to interpret what's happening with the home solar system. And that's part of what we're trying to solve with SolarBot and Hotbot, is to make it effectively a plug-and-play solution. You plug this thing in, it understands the context of what it needs to solve for. It's doing all this fancy maths, it's doing all these fancy predictions, and it's simply delivering you more solar and less grid.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so let's, I think we've covered most of that there. Maybe there will be a follow-up to this because I'm sure as we launch it, there's going to be many questions around this. But let's talk about the app registration. Like, why is it important for the customers to access the app and to register?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So SolarBot and Hotbot and Plentify as a whole, it's an intelligent solution that adapts to your behavior. What we're aiming to build here is what we call ambient intelligence. So it's intelligence that just exists in the background and adapts to your behavior without you having to make any changes yourself. What we're not trying to build here is a behavior change system where we're telling you to go change the time of day that you shower or only bath your kids every second day or anything like that. We want you to continue living your life as uninterrupted as possible, but benefit from cheap, secure power, clean power as well. And so one of the ways we do that is with inputs from the user. So for example, with Hotbot, I mentioned that you tell us when you want hot water. That's an input that allows us to run the system much better. If you don't tell us when you want hot water, we can still kind of try to figure it out from your demand patterns, but we'll add a much bigger margin of safety to ensure that you always have hot water when you need it, because our first goal is to make sure that you don't suffer any service interruptions. And so by registering in the app, you effectively train the system. You tell the system, look, personally, this is what matters to me, and it takes that into account as a really important input in designing how it's controlling your inverter and your geyser.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know. Do we talk about that maybe a little more? I've played with the app now, and like maybe let's talk about the automations that you have available, because I've seen there's a few that's available now, and then also how does the system prioritize what to do? You know, like you have the slider there. Let's maybe delve into that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So there's a number of automations that we've built in, and the way that we try to build these automations is, again, as intuitive for the user as possible. So on the hot water side, the kinds of automations we built in are routines, where you say when you want hot water, as well as a bunch of overrides. So for example, you can force the geyser on, you can force the geyser off, or you could put it into away mode, where, for example, you're traveling for a couple of weeks, it just won't draw any power. There's also load shedding aware for your geyser, so it understands the context of which load shedding zone you're in, and it will adapt its heating patterns around expected energy availability. And then finally, there's solar mode, which tries to push as much of your geyser heating to align with forecast solar times as much as possible. Then on the SolarBot side, again, there's a number of automations. For example, there are probably the biggest one is the energy optimizations. So here you're effectively choosing your risk appetite in the trade-off between cheap power and reliable power. In that example that we talked about earlier, you could start your battery at the start of the day at 20% every single day, irrespective of whether there's going to be load shedding. You'll save the maximum, but you probably have some outages at the same time. And so we give our users the ability to kind of state what is your risk tolerance. Do you want to be able to firstly control this thing yourself because you like to have control? Sure, you can do that. Or do you want to always be protected from load shedding? Or do you want to always be protected from load shedding and unplanned outages? And exactly how high we need to charge your battery is obviously a function of your demand over the course of the day. And the system will continuously adapt your battery level accordingly.
Okay. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, we're very excited about this because I think the level of automation and the level of control this Plentify application and the environment will bring is going to be market changing for many of the installs that's out there. So let's talk about future updates. You know, like things that you guys are working on that you're allowed to share and want to share, and whatever the case may be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a ton of stuff we're working on. Maybe now is actually a good time to talk about the installer dashboard as well, because that's going to be released soon too. So whereas the Plentify app is the portal for our users to engage with their home energy management system, the Plentify dashboard is the portal for installers. And what we're trying to achieve with the Plentify dashboard is a few things. We're trying to create a unified interface, meaning that it's agnostic of inverter. You don't have to use one portal for SunSync and another one for SunGrow. All your inverters will appear in one place. Secondly, it's going to be proactive. So rather than just waiting for your customers to call you to say there's a problem, it's going to be running daily analytics on all of the systems and raising flags for installers to investigate. And then finally, it's going to provide very powerful diagnostic abilities. So diving into data and a variety of charts and stuff like that to then understand and take action from those flags that have been raised or from a customer support query that's come in. So that's probably the biggest future development on the cards, and that's coming very soon. In addition to that, we're expanding the system pretty significantly in a number of ways. So we are increasing the number of inverters that we support, we are increasing the number of loads we support, and we are adding features to our applications. So on the inverters, we're going to be largely guided by you here, but as I mentioned, we're compatible with SunSync, Dea, and SunGrow already. We see a lot of potential with other inverter makes as well. There's pretty much no inverter. There's a handful that have similar home energy management system capabilities, but the majority do not. So there's the big opportunity there. The second is on loads. So here, at the moment, we are controlling, obviously, your geyser load, but there's many more loads in the home. We are going to be developing both additional hardware products to connect additional loads, but more importantly, connecting via API to existing third-party controllers. So, for example, if you have a CBI Astute switch on your pool pump, that's cool. We'll just talk to that, and that kind of talks to where we're going next. I think pool pumps are the next to be included in this platform, and you can imagine a similar thing that after your battery's charged and your geyser is warm, why not? Why waste that solar?
Exactly.
Why not run your pool pump?
Turn the pool pump on.
Yeah. But and beyond that, like fridges, stoves, ovens, EV chargers. If we ever get to this country, there's a ton of potential. Then finally, in terms of features, here we're really driven by our audience, by our users and by our installers. So we spend a lot of time doing research with them to understand their pain points and understand opportunities that they want to unlock, and use that to guide our roadmap. Obviously, we've done a bunch of that already, and so know like the most immediate things that we're going to be building, but I can't tell you exactly what we're going to be building a year from now, because it is going to be shaped by the market.
Exactly.
In terms of like the cool stuff that I'm personally most excited about, and this is I guess where you get to see me geek out a bit. It's like one of the things we're going to be introducing into the app is a real-time view of shading in your house. So, for example, if the SolarBot app tells you, and it will tell you, hey, you've got a shading problem between 10 and 11, it'll then show you a image of your house and show you exactly where that shading is, so you can figure out what the culprit is and cut down that tree or move the panels away from that chimney or whatever the problem is. And so we're hoping that with features like this, we can, again, really empower users to first understand why they're not getting as much as they can out of their system, and then also have the information to take action to drive more solar and less grid.
Does that tie into your insights that you're going to be able to be released on the app? Can you talk about the insights, or do you not want to keep that close to the chest for the moment?
I'm gonna look at my boss and see if I'm allowed to talk about that. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I think one of the really cool things about SolarBot is, just how much data we're collecting and how much intelligence that we've built on top of it. And what we've realized is that we can go way beyond just telling you have a problem. We can tell you what that problem is and how to fix it as well. And so, for example, what we're finding is, take the systems we talked about earlier that start the day on an 80% charge. We've done all we can. We're managing the battery state of charge properly. We're shifting load into the middle of the day, and sometimes we still don't get to 100% utilization. That's a signal that, hey, look, you've optimized this thing as much as possible. You've effectively got extra solar panels on your roof. You need to get more out of your system by either putting more controllable loads in there or by adding more battery capacity. And we could even go a step further to tell you what the financial return of such a move would be. And so, yeah, we're hoping that this type of information will enable users, firstly, to get the most out of the existing infrastructure, but then figure out, with very data-driven advice, how to invest further in their systems.
Okay. I think that's about it. Thank you very much, John. We're all very excited. I don't know if there's anything that you want to add maybe at the end of this?
Maybe just appreciation. Both obviously for you, Lucas, and the Herholdt team, it's been a pleasure working with you, but then also to our team. We've got a lot of people working very hard on these solutions. We're a team of about 60 engineers, data scientists, operators, growth experts. And there's been a lot of people burning a lot of midnight oil to bring these products to life. So really grateful to the amazing team we've got back in Cape Town and Joburg.
Yeah, so we at Herholdt are very excited about this. We think this is going to be an amazing partnership, and we think we're going to solve a lot of problems now and going forward, in terms of energy. So thank you very much for coming around and coming to visit us here in Bloemfontein today. Thank you.
Thanks, Lucas. It's been a pleasure.